Welcome to Psychic Holistic Spotlight. I'm your host, Josie Way, and co-hosting with me tonight is Ken Demers and Kathy Medeiros. And I am very pleased to announce that our guest tonight is Verline Eldridge. We've imported her from Connecticut, but she travels everywhere. She's all over New England and very, very popular. She does a lot of work for half a dozen different spiritualist churches and a private center for development that has a church as well. Positive New Beginnings, the Rhode Island Spiritualist Church, the Brockton Spiritualist Church, the Wigwam Onset Church, and that's just the ones I know about. There's lots of others.
She's a member of the Norwich Church.
Yes.
And her main place is down in Mystic, Connecticut.
Yes.
Mystical Horizons or something?
At least once a week I'm down there.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you want to find her, that's the best place to find her.
Yeah. And she's so popular because not only is she a good medium, but she can regale you with tons of stories, whether it's her childhood and raising her family, and they all have a humorous spiritual perspective to them. Tell me, how did you get started and find your way into becoming a medium?
Oh, God, years ago, just reading books. And living in Norwich for 15 years, never knew there was a spiritualist church there, but met the minister. Actually traveled throughout Massachusetts for at least 12 years before I did anything in Connecticut. So I'm more familiar with Massachusetts people out towards Boston Way than I am with Connecticut. But I originally grew up in Fall River. That's where I'm from. So it's ironic I keep coming back.
Oh, they keep wanting you.
Yeah.
So were you always able to connect with spirit?
As a child, yes, but not knowing that's what I was doing. And I think that most children, you know, especially the ones that aren't what I call normal. My definition of normal is boring. A lot of them, they don't know what no means. They have a lot of questions, and we've got far more children coming into this world now that need a lot of answers.
Yeah.
And they need to be told the truth of what this world is like, and that for some of them, they got their little, what people would call imaginary friends, that they're just as real to them as someone physical sitting there. You know, it's a whole different world now than it was years ago. Years ago, you got locked up.
Yeah.
That's the truth, you know, that they didn't know what to do with people.
And not even that long ago, even back in the 80s and 90s, they still locked you up. But they let you out. Whereas years ago, they didn't let you out.
No, you just stayed there, yeah.
You stayed in.
Yeah.
True.
Which is terribly sad.
Well, I think the television with the shows on this subject is making people more aware of reality. And they're seeing it on TVs as, you know, something made up. But I think eventually they start to realize that, well, this is reality. And not as many people believe every word that certain churches put out. They're learning to question him. I was watching something the other day, the Trump thing, and he says something over and over again, like Obama being not born in this country. And at a certain point in time, people stop believing it. And that's what the churches did for hundreds of years. They would say things that were basically untrue, and that people would start to believe them after a while. And it formed as, okay, well, this is the truth, and what you're saying is not true. About spiritualism, about spirit communication, about being good guys, being bad guys.
Yeah, but you get somebody whose mother gets a little bit older and has an experience with illness or a near-death experience from surgery or something, and suddenly mom is seeing things differently. And maybe she'll tell people, maybe she won't. But a lot more people are talking about their experiences, and a lot of people have written about them, whether it's near-death experiences and even past life experiences from young children that remember former lives. There are lots and lots of authors out there that have written, and there are scientists looking into some of the phenomenon of, like electronic voice phenomena and different things like that. They're looking to see, they supposedly, when you pass away, there's a tiny weight loss that they've been able to measure. Very tiny, but with very, very sophisticated equipment, they're able to measure that. And if you're a medium and you've actually seen a spirit leave a body, which I had the privilege to do once, there is an energy that leaves the body. And beyond that, there is energies that go back in the body and make sure there's nothing left. There's no fragments. I've seen that happen. And I never feared death from that point on.
Now, you saw an energy go back in the body.
It was a separate energy.
Was it
a little
from
sparkling.
that person that was dying,
No,
or was from a
no.
separate thing that was standing there
It was
next to
angels.
Okay.
That is my belief.
So
they were small, bright
So there's no
lights.
fracturing of the soul.
And they went in and went through the body and came out. This was a very, very spiritual dog that had passed away.
A
crossed
dog?
over. A dog. And the dog passed before the injection. I saw the spirit lifted before the injection that stopped the heart. So that dog did not suffer. It didn't, other than the suffering it had before with severe arthritis.
So her soul knew, though, that it was his time to go, so the soul just went. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you're talking about it's almost like a breaking down of a lot of religions now.
I think so.
There are more samenesses between the religions
Yes.
than there are. We've always in the past looked at the differences in the religions. If you look through them and you go back, everything starts from the same beginning. But for me, it was always the belief or being told that there's that God up there,
Yeah.
that keeps that book of my little sins of transit, which probably was taking a cookie when my grandmother turned her back. He's up to encyclopedia by this time, if that bears any truth. But it's like the religions now are looking for, they're not looking at God as being an entity that's out there, that's floating around up on the moon or in the heavens. That's the one thing. That's the one thing that I always never understood. Catholicism at that time as a child did not work for me. Because of a priest, when I asked questions, I would get slapped. I mean, backhanded across the face. An ex-football player, he was good at it, and at slapping, I should say. That was his solution. Years later, he told my aunt. He said, she was asking me questions as a child, that she was voicing the doubts that I had as to whether this is where I needed to be or where I really wanted to be in my world. So now people are recognizing that God's in each and every one of us.
Yes.
I mean, if you go back to what God created us, well, we got men, we women, we got black, yellow, red. We've got so many different people. What does God look like?
Well,
it's-
my opinion is, we know our science tells us, we know what an atom is, we know what neutrons are, and that the electron going around these atoms is pure energy. that energy of the atom, which is part of everything, that's God.
It's
in
within
everything.
everything.
It's in everything. That pure energy that makes up everything, that's God.
Yeah.
And there's an interconnectedness between all energies.
The reality is, we're nothing but a blade of grass in this universe, this earth that we live on.
Yeah.
We're like a blade of grass. It's I'll use the word soul, or the essence of who we are. That is what creates who we are. I mean, we're a little bit better than the tree because we can move. We can make decisions. But we're still evolving.
What's in addition to being the energy, I see God as the space between the molecules, that invisible space that holds everything together, that the molecules spin around.
Well, that would be the dark energy.
No, it's not.
No.
That's what it's called.
Well, it's just empty space.
No,
because science can't.
Empty space.
It's
Yeah.
called dark energy. It's another dimensional energy that we don't understand, that we can't see. So it's dark energy, but it's there.
But
It
it's
makes
not
up-
negative dark.
Well, but science was saying years ago that those dark holes in space are empty. They now know they're not empty.
Yes, that's the dark energy.
They now know
Dark
that there's
space.
something moving around in there.
What I found interesting, I did the lady from the Wigwam. She was a guest on the show here a couple months back.
Patty?
I don't remember her name. She was really good at what she did. My father, my original father on this planet, he came in and he described himself as a seeder of planets. And he talked about, or she talked about, the vast amount of information that was going from every person being sent back.
Yes, yep.
I didn't ask. I didn't think of it at the time. I didn't think of where is it being sent back to.
We are literally creating what's beyond what they're calling black holes. That's still being filled up by who we are, our thoughts, our form. We create. We're no less than God. We can create.
We're part of God.
We are. You were talking about animals. I'm curious, is that cat that was in Bristol that would jump on the patient's
yeah.
beds
Oh,
2
yeah.
hours before they died, still
Yeah.
there?
Yes.
Yeah, as far as I know.
Yes.
It was pretty old.
But this stuff, psychic, the word, and it's close to the word psycho. It is very close.
Yeah.
But it's in everyone who comes here. They used to call it ESP, and way back when the children used to be called star children, because I am that old. And gradually, now they're the crystal and the diamond. They've got all kinds of words. But you have the medical world. I remember people in from the Boston churches years ago, 35 years ago, actually went into the Boston's hospitals and were doing healings. And, they got permission to do that.
I've tried to do it in Rhode Island.
It's very
we
hard.
We have it in Connecticut. I mean, you go to the hospital in town where I live, and they've got like 9 modalities you get to pick. You get to pick whichever one you
I
want.
tried to volunteer at Ronald McDonald House. That didn't work. All these other different things. There was somebody else, they were doing some kind of strange, non-conventional healings. I says, I called up. Oh, no, we can't do that. That would disrupt our study.
Oh, well, maybe they're doing a study on a non-conventional,
Yeah, well.
specific.
They want to license Reiki healers. And I'm like, well,
that's for beginners.
who's going to test them? I mean, you go to a doctor and say, I want a piece of paper that I've been healed. Is he going to give you that piece of paper?
I healed my doctor, but I had to laugh at the guy. I didn't laugh at him, but I was laughing to myself. He says, we can only use people that are licensed healers. I said, there's no such thing. The state of Rhode Island doesn't have it.
The state of Rhode Island does honor massage therapy licenses for people who also do some alternative healings that are under the heading of energy healings.
But they're still using the massage therapy license, though. It's
Yeah.
not the alternative healing license.
It's a holistic healer's license. There is such a thing, too.
I never heard of it.
That is mostly people that have taken holistic counseling and alternative therapies, more of the psych therapies, but a lot of them include alternative healing methods, like tapping and eye movement desensitization.
Muscle testing.
And muscle testing, the kinesiology. They include a lot of those things.
Kinesiology, the chiropractors use that all the time. And I used to use Angelica Redleaf, and she was amazing with it. And I guess some other ones are, but I don't really know. Anyway, we're getting off the track.
We were on track?
Yeah, we're supposed to hear some of your... You're one of the better mediums that I know, but you're the star medium that has a peculiar sense of humor. So we got to listen to some of your...
Oh, it's not peculiar. It's just that,
Spirit sends you...
I don't mean peculiar.
That this universe has a sense of humor, and they just, for some reason, I think when they get bored up there in heaven, God looks down and said, "Get her. She bounces good." So it's just things happen to me that that are just. So
it just happened.
Healing.
It is. I have to. He's trying to get me to tell the story about.
Yeah, I know.
The highway.
The tale.
Let's do the highway story.
I was coming up to serve the Brockton Church, which is in Rehoboth, I believe. It's in Rehoboth. Mm-hmm. They still have the old charter name on it. And, of course, I grew up in Fall River, and to this day I have never been to Roger Williams Park and Zoo. Never. And it's 9:30 in the morning. I'm minding my own business, and I guess I get close to that place where the park is because I don't pay attention. And there's a red pickup truck in the slow lane, and I'm in the middle lane. And he starts putting his brakes on. And I'm looking around like, why is he slowing down? And he stops right on the highway. So I check the rearview mirror. The car is at a distance. They're way back. I put my four-way flashes on, and I get up almost in right matching his front end of his vehicle. And I'm got my head down trying to ask him, "Do you want me to call 911?" And he blew the horn of the truck. And I guess it's a baby emu jumped on the hood of my car. And all I saw was this long telescopic neck with these crazy wild eyes looking at me. I thought a UFO was over my car and an alien fell out. And because we're on the air, I cannot repeat what I was screaming. And he blew the horn and it jumped off, and then I heard, "Move, cars are coming," and I looked in the mirror and they were almost up to where we were, so I left. So when I got to the church, a few of the husbands, they're all married, they looked at me and they said, "Are you all right?" And I said, "Why wouldn't I be all right?" And they said, "You really look weird." So when I told them what happened, they said, "Another escapee from." And I said, "What escapee from where?" And it was Roger Williams Park and Zoo. And to this day, I go by there very slow, canvassing the whole highway.
No, my animal's on the hood of your truck, your car.
It probably died because of the Jersey barriers. That was the unfortunate things. Millions of cars probably travel that same road, but unfortunately,
Only you.
Yeah.
yes.
Well,
Maybe it wanted to communicate to you.
Well, I was communicating when it was looking at me with those crazy eyes. It truly was.
One of your favorite stories is that you deal with dead people all the time. And at one point in time, I think you were manifesting that you wanted a man to come into your life.
Oh, no, that was God's interpretation. No, that was God's crazy idea, I think. See, God has a sense of humor. My ex-husband was actually from the area also. And I got a message one day from the Norwich Hatter State Hospital that this man had expired. It had the same name as my ex-husband. And my present husband said, "Well, I'm very sorry, who is he?" And I said, "I have no idea who this man is." They were telling me that I had to bury him, that he had died, and did I want an autopsy and all of this. So I said, "This is some mistake. I have no idea who this gentleman is," because I knew his family. Now, I grew up in the Stafford Road section of Fall River. This man grew up in Tiverton. If you go right straight up past the line, that's where he was from. Evidently, had been working in Hartford and was admitted to the Norwich Hospital, was there for 35 years, and not a living soul, anyone's name in his paperwork. And 10 years before he passed, Verline, and I'll omit the last name, went to visit with him and filled out a piece of paper to visit with him. And then he died 10 years later, and the only name they ever had
It was you.
was the first name was Verline. The last name had changed. So when they went through the city paperwork, they found, based upon my first name, I received the telegram. So he got more healing after he died than this man ever received in his lifetime. Now, 6 years later, we took this big trip up to Lilydale, and one of the women heard the story from a couple of the guys, and she said, "You had to bury somebody from Norwich Hospital?" I said, "Yes." She said, "What was his name?" And I told her. And she said, "Oh my God, my favorite patient." I says, "What did he look like?" She says, "Well, he was small framed like Popeye." And she said, "But you couldn't turn your back on him for a split second or you would be down on the ground." So at least my lovely aunt, who's now passed, very Catholic, prays for everyone. She says, "Well, what did you do?" I said, "I gave God hell. What else was I supposed to do?" And she says, "Why?" I said, "Because I already had a husband. I didn't need another man, and he was 88 and stuck in a freezer for a week before I even got the telegram." Now you got to go up to the Iran war, where I got this gentleman, hospital calls me up, unlisted number. This gentleman had just died, and where do you want him sent? And I said, "I have no idea who this gentleman is. I will not presume to send him anywhere. Family may want him someplace else." And I hung up. Took 2 days for the obit, and he had my address, unlisted phone number. He had practically everything for identification. Obit comes out, he left 13 children. Now, most people ordinarily, this stuff does change you. Most people would have laughed and hung up the phone after telling the doctor there was a mistake. I spent almost half an hour because I didn't know if this was an accident, if this was a sudden passing, and maybe he didn't know.
If it was the other stuff.
He had crossed, and then I went to sleep. So, again, I had to give God hell again. He got better. This man was 86.
A little younger.
So I really had to talk with God, and it's like, no more men or any other dead bodies. And I didn't get any more.
Well, that's good.
Get any live ones?
Meet them all the time.
She's keeping them to herself.
Meet them all the time.
It's amazing how simple that is. It's just to ask and you shall receive, right?
But you learn how to automatically kind of go into a prayer healing mode when something, and everybody does it. If if you suddenly see somebody and the aunt's sick or something, most people, they don't realize it. Just that quick thought of they're ill sends out healing energy. It's what we're here for. It's what we're here for.
Yeah. I send angels out whenever I see, I send my own thoughts and I send angels to watch over people that are not physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually well. Because sometimes you see somebody's in turmoil and you can't help them.
What I do is a lot of times when I see the emergency vehicles going by, and I ask, "Okay, God, please help all involved. The highest and best."
Me too.
So I was raised that when you saw an ambulance go by, you always blessed yourself.
Oh, really?
And that was the, so it goes down
Same
in
intention,
practically there's so much sameness that's in everything than there is the separateness.
Yeah, and more of the religions are bringing in some of the mystical traditions.
See, I understand Catholicism now because it was always a mystery. You had to accept it blindly because it was a mystery.
Well, they didn't even tell you what to accept because they did the things in Latin, right?
Well,
That
some of
right
You
now
just,
they
you
do
just
in
have to
different
accept the
languages.
church as a whole without any understanding behind it.
But Catholicism,
I
they
went
didn't
through-
always explain.
But it isn't just the Catholic Church. I'm sorry for interrupting. I was raised in the Jewish church, and they did the same thing. You know, it's the parent of the Catholic Church, and they did the same thing about doing it in a different religion,
Yeah.
and in a different language, rather, and saying this is the way things are.
Yeah, more often than not, they have to explain stuff now, and I think they're doing that out of necessity to keep the religions
I think they're
alive.
having to, because a lot of people are wandering, a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, any place I'm at, and it's like, how many people are new, you know, to spiritualism, and hands will go up. And most times the moderator will say, well, how many were raised Catholic? And there's always more Catholics than any other group that are
Well,
looking for
they're
answers.
looking.
Yeah.
Looking for answers.
I remember one time I was in the Brockton church and I was talking to, I think it was 2 or 3 sisters and their mother. And one of the women was asking me something of her, and I looked at her, I says, oh, well, you're mediumistic too, right? And she said, yeah. And I looked at her sister and I says, so she, and we're talking for a second. And they said something about a mother, and I looked over at her mother, and her mother was a powerhouse. And I said, holy cows, I mean, I can't, and then the conversation turned to that it wasn't really evil. And when I said that to her, one of the sisters just gave me a big hug and said, thank you.
Yeah.
That, you know, it was like,
Yeah, I'll give Judaism one credit. When you got to the high school age, you were allowed to ask questions, and you were encouraged to ask questions. So that was one thing about Judaism, whereas I know all of my Catholic friends weren't. Okay.
yeah.
We're coming to almost the close of the program, and I want to say thank you very much for all those joining us. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Verline. Now, what's the best way to reach you?
The bookstore in Connecticut.
No, actually, I have, my landline is now my regular cell phone, which I don't like to answer, so it's never on.
The bookstore in Connecticut.
Okay,
Or call some
Mystical
spiritualist
Horizons.
church and leave a message. That's how friends just found me.
yeah, Mystical Horizons, or any of the New England spiritualist churches.
Yeah, most of them.
Yeah.
It's amazing now how
Well,
everything's
she's
just
going to do
connected.
another show of us shortly, so hopefully we can get back on her track as a medium and hear some more of her stories from that side of it, and maybe some education.
Yeah.
How many people do you feel are capable of being mediums?
A lot of them, but a lot of them afraid to go that distance. Everybody is psychic. It's just that they're afraid to go beyond. It's that, you know.
And the
Because of
normal.
what they've been taught by the
Well, they don't want
churches
the,
or
no,
whatever.
because a lot of them too, they don't want the responsibility, because it is a
Oh, yeah.
responsibility.
It is.
You have to learn to open your mouth and just let words come out.
Yeah.
And when you open up, you're pulling the emotion from those who've left this world, and you've got the emotion of the people who are here. So
Yeah.
a lot of people are kind of, you know, they like to be private, and, you know, and all of a sudden you're overwhelmed with
Yeah.
this.
A lot of mediums are private people,
Yeah.
and it's a strange paradox.
You mean they're not like the New York medium or Long Island medium?
No, they're not.
Thankfully,
Long
we are.
Island.
Thankfully, we're not.
No.
Thankfully.
Okay. Thank
she's
you
good.
again. And please come back and watch us and join us again for another show with Verline. And who knows who will be our guest next time. Thank you.